Numbers are still going up, up, up. Excellent. It's fantastic to see you all. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. All right. All right, well, welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. It's extremely exciting for us today to be talking about No Spray Spring. My name's Dr. Kate Umbers. I'm the Managing Director of Invertebrates Australia, and at Western Sydney University, I also sit on the Biodiversity Council. And just wanted to start off by talking to you a little bit about how Invertebrates Australia started off. So we're founded by several scientists who were keen to get invertebrate conservation happening in Australia. We're a not-for-profit organisation registered by the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission. And yeah, we're all about invertebrate conservation. So what we want is Australians to protect nature by caring for invertebrates. That's our vision. And so today what we've got obviously an amazing panel here that really don't need any introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. So we've got Costa Georgiadis from Gardening Australia, of course. We've got Mel Logozzo from Rewilding Suburbia and Dr. Lizzy Lowe from Edith Cowan Uni and from Invertebrates Australia. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. I'm looking forward to an hour of bug power. It's going to be good fun. So first of all, Lizzy's just going to open up with just a really short 5-minute presentation to get us all on the same page about what invertebrate conservation can look like in your garden, what No Spray Spring is all about, and how to integrate all kinds of different ways to look after all the lovely nature in your garden while still having a productive place in your backyard. Thanks heaps, Lizzy. Jump on in.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. I won't take very long because I know we want to talk to Mel and Costa. But hopefully you've heard of No Spray Spring before. This is something we started last year, and it's because a few of us at Invertebrates Australia realised that every time we stepped outside of our bubbles, we were talking to people that had this need to spray in their garden every year. They were saying they book in their 6-monthly spray, but they didn't always know why. It was just something that they'd always done. And so we realised that there was a need for some positive messaging around why invertebrates can actually be a really good thing in gardens, and thinking about the way that we manage pests a little bit differently. And so the aim is really about recognising the importance of different invertebrates, talking about whether we actually need to use insecticides, and just being a bit more, having a more biodiverse approach to the way that we garden. If you've seen a little bit of our No Spring messaging, you will know that we're really positive in our approaches. We're really talking about, we're not trying to tell anyone off. We know that sometimes you've got pests and you need to deal with these issues, but we're really talking about the ways that you can build up your gardens to be biodiverse places and hopefully minimize the pest impacts that you have without having to spray. So you'll see some of this useful information that's been coming out across Instagram and some of our other social media platforms. Now, this picture here is just to show you the plethora of amazing insects and arachnids and all sorts of invertebrates that can exist in your gardens, to kind of jog your memory about the kind of things you might be seeing in your gardens this spring, and to see some of the ideas that we might be talking about today about which bugs are good, which bugs are bad, what we can do if we think they might be bad, and what we can do to encourage all the good ones, because there are so many exciting different types out there. This makes me really excited. I'm going to focus on these two just for 2 seconds, because I think the context of these particular species is really important, as Mel will obviously attest to as well. These two species are the absolute powerhouses in our gardens, but not everyone knows what they look like. You might recognize these little eggs on the end of strings on the side of the page here. People see them, but they don't realize that these are baby lacewings. And when lacewings are babies, they look like these funky, spiky little creatures here with really big mouth parts, and they are amazing at eating aphids and all sorts of other pests. Same thing here with these ladybirds. People like ladybirds because they're pretty and they kind of, fly around their gardens. Kids love them. But when they're babies, these ladybirds are black, yellow, spiky, and again, amazing predators, both as juveniles and as adults. So these are two superheroes of our back gardens. Very quickly, I'll just talk about this idea of how we can be more sustainable about the way we manage pests, because none of us are saying that there aren't pests that sometimes need to be managed. We're just talking about having a more structured approach about the way we do deal with them. And one way we can do this is called integrated pest management. And this is a framework of pest decision-making that was developed in agricultural systems. And it basically says use the most toxic thing last. So you start at the very bottom of this pyramid and you do the least toxic, least intervention methods that you can. So you look at what pests are around and see if it's a problem. You learn about the pests and you work out whether they actually need to be controlled. Then if you've got problems, you try and keep them out. If you can't keep them out, or you can't keep them out of your garden, we look at biological control, which is these good bugs we're talking about, the predators that can come in and do that pest control for you. And if that really doesn't work, we try and use selective chemicals. So these are some of like the oils that you can use, some of the really selective things that will only target one particular type of pest if you've got a real pest problem. So you can use those kind of chemicals if you really do need to get rid of something. And at the very top of that pyramid, as a very last resort, we think about those broad spectrum chemicals that do cause quite a lot of environmental damage, but can be used in extreme cases. And so this is where we're not saying never, ever use pesticides ever. We're saying only use them as a last resort. And this is a really useful framework for people to think about the way that they can manage insects and things in their gardens. But we do appreciate that it's easier to spray sometimes than it is to do all of these things. And that's why education is so important. Knowing which are the good bugs, knowing what you can do. So at Invertebrates Australia, we've put together top 10 tips for invertebrate friendly gardens. And these are some of them. Hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about some of these today. But we also have these written up as a fact sheet that you can download from our website. We've got some stickers that you can buy that I've got stuck all over my place at the moment, and a little sign that has bug friendly gardens on it that you can drill up into your garden so that everybody that comes to your garden knows that you have a bug-friendly garden. So you can pop onto our website there to check out those and hopefully put one up in your garden if you have a bug-friendly garden as well. That's my intro, Kate, if you want to jump into chatting to the rest of the panel.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lizzy. That's great. So yeah, so just doing absolutely everything we possibly can to avoid getting anything into your garden that might be damaging. So let's have a little chat with Mel and Costa. An absolute treat. So exciting. So look, we just couldn't be more delighted that you guys are here. And I guess we can therefore deduce that you are supportive of the No Spray Spring campaign. Could you, in your own words, tell us what you think is valuable about something like a No Spray Spring campaign, and leave it for you to decide who's going to go first?
Mel.
Go, Mel.
Thanks, mate. Well, from my point of view, everyone should already know I am an avid insect stalker, so that is probably my number one. I fell in love with them, and I want everyone to know how amazing they are. So I think that's what drives most of my motivation now, and also having a young child. So I've got a 5-year-old and we do a lot of gardening together, and she's the next generation. I want to fill her little mind with as much as I can, and then she can go to school. We've just set up a veggie patch at her school and she's already there helping me talk to them. Oh, you might see this on here, and I'm like proud mama. So to me, it's the way forward. That's how I've seen it. So
great answer. Thanks, Mel. Costa, what is it for you?
Look, going off what Mel just said and what Lizzy said as well, it's about behaviour and kind of what we know, or I suppose thinking about Mel's little one and all the little ones in my life and all the little ones that I engage with at schools every week of the year. They have that fascination. They have that inquisitiveness. They have that interest to just learn, like they're just sponges. And somewhere along the way, life and adultness kind of bashes that out of people. And then, they become sort of so sanitized and sterilized and concerned about things. And they listen to the media, they listen to product assault, and it gets lost, which is a real shame. And I suppose it's never been lost for me because I'm always around kids and I just love their big eyes because they are like insects, they're just, they're looking 360 degrees like from the moment they wake up, you know, if they see a spider up on the ceiling, they want to get up there.
For better or worse.
Oh yeah, I do.
You know, they walk out to the garage and they're looking, and they're on the street and they're holding snails and they're eating things that, you know, adults are going to have conniptions over because, you know, you ate something. But so that's the bit that I love. And when Lizzy told me about No Spray Spring, immediately I love the context, because it wasn't that's not a finger pointing thing, and it's a really broad, it's not like, oh, this is no spray day, which is kind of, that's all fine and dandy to get something come into your feed and you go, oh wow, you know, I'm not going to spray, or I'll think about not spraying and then forget about it. But the idea of No Spray Spring is kind of giving people some context and saying spring is when so many things are coming back to life, and there's so much to see. And it doesn't have to be about the spraying. It can actually be about the life coming back. And we can say, wow, by being involved in No Spray Spring, you can learn that that's a hoverfly, or you can learn that as Lizzy showed in just a few of those, or the 10 things that you've got, we can share that. And then the more we share it, then the more people can get to know these things. Like you think about the shift in you know, appreciation of bees, native bees. You know, that's come because people suddenly see a blue-banded bee and they go, ooh, and then people share it, and then people go, ooh, you know, and you could have one if you plant this, ooh, I'll do, and then they plant one and they get one and they go, like they just go off. So, you know, I see No Spray Spring as this perennial opportunity to bring this up each year and to rebirth each year and say, hey, let's learn some new insects and let's get to know who we're sharing this joint with and who are the ones holding us all up under there. So yeah, that's what excited me, and I just love the context, the concept, and the fact that it can bring the heart in and tell stories.
That's excellent, and I'm glad that that's how you feel, because we want people to feel, you know, we want people to feel super excited about it, and that it is about that rejuvenation, and it's about making a good choice, about making spring full of life. Lizzy, I'm curious to know your perspective on this. This has sort of been a long time coming for you. You've been working as a scientist and in media and all over the place, and in regenerative ag and you name it. And yeah, what's No Spray Spring to you? It's quite different, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, Kate, you'll know I've always loved bugs ever since I was the stage that Mel's talking about. I've loved bugs, and I never ever thought that I would be involved in pest control, right? Like if somebody had asked me, where's your career going? I would not have said I was going to become a pest control expert. Until about like 5 years ago, when I realized if I want to save the bugs, I have to, this is the main thing that's killing them in cities, at least, you know, and, you know, in farms too. So I worked out that if I want to be doing the best possible job that I can to save bugs, then I need to learn about the way that we manage them and why we manage them this way. Because the thing that really got me was that so much of what we're using is completely unnecessary. So I understand farmers having to use pesticides, right? If they don't, sometimes they lose their crop, they lose their livelihood. Like that makes sense to me. But there's people that are spraying so much stuff and really nasty stuff in their gardens because they saw a wasp or like don't like moths or something like that. And for me, like that disconnect between the real risk of spraying chemicals versus this false risk of having invertebrates which are actually beneficial in their gardens, like this huge misunderstanding of what these insects are doing in our systems just made me go, I can't do anything else. This is what I have to be focusing on, because we could change things significantly just by giving people a little bit of information and just by increasing their tolerance for having insects in their gardens, or, you know, preferentially their love of bugs, and getting people to really appreciate what they have in their gardens and to understand we need to be saving it rather than spraying it. Yeah.
Oh, good. That was a tagline, Lizzy. So Mel, when you're in your garden, we all know. Well, if you don't know, you better follow Mel on Instagram and find out what it's all about in Mel's garden. when you're in your garden and you see, oh, my radishes have all been chewed up by something. Oh man, this thing's what's your reaction? How do
They're
you
my
react?
trophies. They're my trophies that that particular plant or my garden is part of something bigger. I think a lot of people get really cranky with their food in particular, having munched leaves or a bit of, a few bugs on them, but it doesn't stop us being able to, one, eat them. They're not all going to look like they do at the shops. And I think that's really important for people to understand at home. And again, for kids growing up, I think they're not going to look like the shops all the time. They're not perfect. But yeah, they're my trophies. It's something better is happening in my garden, and that my garden is part of, um, it's its own self-sustaining ecosystem. And then I just sit and wait patiently to see, okay, well, what other bug is going to come and control that little bug for me? Or, yeah, I find it really fascinating. So I don't, I forgot the question now. What was it again?
I think
I'm
you
excited about bugs.
I think you answered because it was just about like what do you like how because to try to get at that idea of when people see damage to
Yeah,
their stuff, like it's all framed in this really really difficult way. It's all really bad. Oh my goodness, somebody's you know had a chew on my lettuce, and you see it as like, yes, yes.
absolutely. And you and I were talking about this only the other week. It was that perception versus perfection and perception. It's funny, like roses are one that every year, oh, something's eating my rose leaves every year. Um, and it could be something else, but you see that perfect half-cut circle. Oh, that's a leaf cutter bee. And suddenly the perception changes. Like, what do you mean it's a leaf cutter bee? I'm like, you've got native bees in your yard and they're using that. So, and once they're there, but yeah, it really does kind of change their perception of things. And then you look at it differently and go, well, it's amazing. Is it going to kill my plant? Absolutely not. It's a trophy. I'm wearing it with pride. Yeah, there's something using my garden. There are many things using my garden.
So maybe a bit more like Sherlock Holmes, like get excited
Mm,
about what's going on with your plants. Don't get
absolutely.
cranky. Get excited. Get curious.
Yes.
Costa, what about for you? I mean, you're
Yeah.
among the gardening diehards of Australia. Like how do you talk to people about this, and how and what perspectives have you seen that work?
Yeah, well, Mel, I share that same excitement when you see that semicircular, quarter circle, half circle, or full circle cut in a leaf. It's the leaf cutter, and then I can just jump on my phone and show people a picture of the bee and say, just keep an eye out for that. But look at how they do it. The fact that they munch this leaf up, they tuck it under their legs, and they fly home and put it together. Like, that's the story, and that's how we change people. Like, to be able to say, well, if you start spraying with heavy chemicals, you're going to knock that out, and you didn't even realize you were doing it. But from my point of view, like, for example, at last look, eating a whole didn't affect me, even though it was void. The void didn't create a void in my stomach. It kind of, there was still enough on that silver beet leaf with a couple of holes here and there. And, I think it just opens up so many bigger picture, as Mel said, perspectives, because you realize that in order for food to have this perfection that we see, so much, you only needed to look at the war on waste and see how much food goes to waste. Never even sees the light of day, has used up all those minerals, all that water, all that energy, and then gets dumped because it was too big, too small, had been eaten a little bit, or so on. And we have this anal retentive perception put on us, which is not correct, but because it is a scapegoat by the big players, saying, oh, that's what the customers demand. No, that's not true. And I think this is an opportunity for people to, step out of that realm and actually appreciate that these are the realities. So on the one hand, you can shift your expectation, because expectation always ends in disappointment, right? I always say to people, don't have these expectations. Just allow it to unfold, and then you're not going to be swinging like a pendulum, which is kind of what happens. And then people go, oh, I lost everything, or oh, I got everything, or oh, it was drought and now it's flood. And we kind of get caught in this, we just get knocked around. But when you garden and when you connect with nature, you actually start to get a sort of anchor, and you go, well, yeah, this got a little bit eaten. Oh, there was more snails. Why was there more snails? Because it's been raining for 3 weeks, and that's their perfect habitat, and that kicks off their breed. So what does that mean? Actually go out when it's raining, and you'll find them and pick them off. You don't need to go, because the lovely connection there then is, if you use those toxic blue pellets, then basically what you're doing is poisoning the calcium supply for birds and for lizards and all sorts of other creatures that rely on snail shells. So killing them, you're actually killing a broader part of the web of life, the food chain. So I like that idea of, like, you go out there when it's raining and take the kids out. Oh, they're going to have a ball. But I have a great time doing that. And suddenly you connect to the conditions. And if you connect to the conditions, then you can start to preempt, and you'll get out there as the snails are coming out, and you'll protect those leaves and you'll protect those things. So yeah, as Mel said, the more you look, the more you see, the more you start to understand, and then you piece these things together. If it was the leaf cutter, or if it was another insect, as Lizzy mentioned, with just 10 of those, and we know how many more there are that have never even, had a Insta story on them.
Yeah. Is there one left? Has Mel left us one?
We'll see.
Yeah, all right. So, all right then. So what happens if we control nothing in our gardens? If we just let our gardens grow, we plant stuff, and we just don't ever try to control any of the invertebrates? Has anyone ever done an experiment?
The best thing in the world happens. What are you talking about? It becomes a self-sustaining ecosystem that we can enjoy. Yes, you'll get more pests, but then you'll get more predators. And then you have all these invertebrates, and there's pests and there's predators, but then you're going to get more lizards, more frogs, more birds, more bandicoots, more everything. So more things for me to film. I might appear in your garden because it's amazing. So you just don't know. But I think, yeah, just let it go and see what happens, because nature's got this funny way of just balancing itself out if you let it.
Is there a fear? Do we have a fear? Are we trying to control? Is that what's going on? Is that why we're just spraying unbelievable amounts of pesticides on our gardens for absolutely no good reason whatsoever? We're using snail baits and all this. Are we doing it because we're worried about something bad happening if we don't? Is that what we're up to?
Often people think it's what you're supposed to do, and that's why I push back against it, because it's what they saw their parents do. As Costa said, it's what they see the advertising tell you what to do. It would be really improper to have flies near your house or to have spider webs around your garden. So we can't have that. So for me, it's about pushing back against public perceptions about what cleanliness looks like, even, or what healthy gardens look like, because the traditional healthy garden that some people see is, astroturf, very sterilized and doesn't have a lot of bugs in it. So it's reframing what's healthy. And I think even this idea that, kids getting out in the mud and playing with insects and having biodiverse ecosystems around them makes them healthy in many more ways than just one, their body and minds. And so I think that's a nice way to shift it. And the kids know this, as Costa said. We can keep telling the kids and they will grow up and they will tell the people around them. So start from the bottom up and we'll get there eventually, I think.
So what do we do in tricky situations where where we're not sure whether we have like an actual serious problem. So say, we've got a single pot on a balcony, it's isolated, it's our only rose or something, and it's covered in aphids. What do we do? How do we deal with that? Mel, do you want to have a crack at that one?
Aphids, leave them. Aphid advocate over here, leave them. My answer for aphids is always just leave them. But no, if you're unsure, there are many different ways. I think I get this question a lot as well. They're like, well, how do you know what it is? Like, what do you do? How do you even know? I think connecting with other people, for starters, is a great way, whether it be in real life and social media. There are plethora of insect groups, and I find them very handy because they're often filled with entomologists and other people who work in that field. So they're always in there, eye scouting. iNaturalist is a fantastic tool. I believe you guys have done some information on that before. Again, there will always be people in there. Even things like Google reverse image, like they're not always accurate, but sometimes it gives you a place to start so you know who to ask the questions to as well. And sometimes I just don't even know what things are. If I see aphids and a whole bunch of other stuff, I'll go, what are the aphid predators? And I'll look at them and go, oh, that looks like a hoverfly larvae. So sometimes you can do it backwards. That's where
I left the aphids on one of my trees this year. It was just a hibiscus that was covered in them for some reason, absolutely covered. And it was the most amazing experiment in my garden because over time I could see the parasitoid wasps come in. So these are the wasps that lay their eggs inside the aphids, and you can start seeing that they turn into these little mummies, we call them. They get a hard coating. And after a couple of weeks, over half of the aphids on there had these little coatings. So they've been parasitized. And then you can actually start seeing these tiny little wasps all over this thing. And over time, they basically dealt with this whole aphid population. And so just being able to sit back and watch that was phenomenal. And so, yeah, I think, like Mel said, just understand your garden a little bit better and just take a step back and watch and see what's happening.
Funny, isn't it? Like we jump out of the blocks too early, so then we don't give the opportunity for those wasps to do their thing, and then people go, oh well, this doesn't work, so I need to use chemicals because these things are out of control. And
because you killed all the good bugs the first time round.
that idea of patience and just saying, well, the plants can survive until something happens, and it gives you this chance to then build up the armory, to build up the beneficial bugs, and that way you're kind of being part of the solution, not just for your place. I think that's the other thing. It's not just confined to number 45 Bug Street. Those beneficial bugs are going around. Like my frog pond, like it's sending frogs like over the entire district. It's not, they're not just living at my place. And even last night I was sitting here and I was watching something with a friend, and I just saw one of the indoor palm fronds, like in the corner of my eye, it went, whoa, and I thought, nothing fell from the ceiling that was that heavy. I thought, nah, I said, one of my buddies has to be here. So I sort of marched over there, and sure enough, look, up jumped this frog, and it's living in one of the indoor pot plants. And I sort of opened the door and I said, buddy, if you want to go out, you're welcome. And it just hung around and it's disappeared. And you just think, I'm giving this chance for the insects. And then the dragonflies come to there, and then everything has come back because of this frog pond of mine. And when you start to think like that, you realize that your actions do matter, even if it is on a balcony, because you're providing something for the travelers, and they, much like the shorebirds that come from the Arctic and they have to stop and then take off again. If they come up to your little second floor balcony because they've been blown around in the wind a bit, and you've got a little sort of native plant up there, and they just go, whoa, I'm just going to hang here tonight. Let alone a backyard, and let alone a nature strip that you then establish with a few more people down the street, and you create a corridor. So I suppose, my overarching perspective is it matters. Every plant matters because we need them and the insects need you.
Yeah, I think this idea of a garden as a refuge, as a resource for wildlife is something that I think we think a little bit about with maybe birds or stuff like that, but we don't think about insects sometimes as wildlife, and what a missed opportunity that is, because they're everywhere and they're cool and they're weirder than you could ever imagine, and they need you so badly. They need your flowers and they need it. They're looking around the neighborhood. They can't fly like I don't know, a boobook or a powerful owl to get, kilometers away to get, they need it really close by, don't they? So I think the garden as a refuge idea, but it makes me wonder a little bit about gardening goals, and a lot of us, especially after COVID, a lot of us have got goals, including myself, to grow a bloody carrot, like a, and actually have, yes, I did, and more than one. No, but we have these goals about like veggie gardens and stuff like that, and they're really valuable goals. They're really important, like you were saying, Mel, about, connecting kids with where their food come from, all that really important stuff. So, but sometimes if you want to grow a cauliflower, you need to keep your white fly out and that kind of stuff. So what are our great alternatives to our chemical defenses? So Costa, do you want to lead off with that one?
Yeah, the defenses, like anything, people talk about defenses when it comes to wildlife. I live on the back of a nature reserve or the national park. Well, things are going to come. And to me, that idea of the garden goals, you need to set your priorities and set your scale of permanence up and say, well, what are the permanent things and what are the impermanent things? And if there are these things that I really want, I've got to set up some parameters. And I'm not just going to hope for the best, because I know that those cabbage whites will come and they will do what they do respectfully, because that's their gig. They do it well. Respect, and if we change that and go, yeah, respect, I'm going to put a net up, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get the right net for starters so that it's safe for other wildlife. And you can do that. There's plenty of info on websites, and don't buy the cheap stuff that can get wildlife tangled up in it and so on. But I'm going to do that. But then I'm not going to, if I go Humpty Dumpty, you only need two of them to get in while you're at work. It's all over, right? The caterpillars will be all over it. So I want to do it properly. So I'll do it properly, and I'll make sure I secure it properly, but I'll secure it in a way. And, you don't have to go and buy structures and things. You might make the structure yourself, or you might get a pre-made structure. But if you're going to make garden beds, make them modular so that you can kind of fit one frame over multiple ones. But say, okay, this is the bed that I'm going to make secure at these times of the year. And when you do that, then your expectations kind of get met, and you don't get deflated and peeved and then kind of go, oh, well, I'm just a brown thumb and I can't get on top of this. Because by having the net, you're not spraying. By not spraying, you're contributing to the broader survival of the other beneficial insects, which then means that that they're going to get controlled in other ways, but you're just keeping them off what you want. And the other thing is, get a net and get the kids out there. That's so much fun. It's like,
yeah, he's off.
He's got so many bugs in his house, he needs to catch them, right?
the frogs are onto them.
It is a great way to teach kids how to handle butterflies, like when you've got stuff like cabbage whites and things like that. Teach them how to handle them, interact with them, all that kind of stuff, and sit with them. Mel, what do you do? What are your if you've got, like, I don't know, a prized purple broccoli or something, do you do anything at all? Is it a free for all at your place?
Free for all. I don't need the purple broccoli that bad. If they want it, they can have it. And if I did for some reason need a prize purple broccoli, as Costa said, I would just exclude it. But I pretty much have aphids and cabbage whites all year round over here. And that's the way I like it, because then it just keeps this cycle going all the time. So free for all. You could go out in my garden right now and there's probably about 50 cabbage whites flying around. But hey, they're pollinating too, so
Yeah.
The other thing, the other thing that I always talk about, and Lizzy, you're a big sort of advocate and understander of this, is we need to allow plant life cycles to complete. Like, because again, that perception that, oh, we have to trim everything that's dead off. Like, oh, that flower has finished, it's drooped. Off it goes. But nature's got this story. It's got a process that needs to play out, because the dead umbel heads are there as habitat for something at this point on the cycle. And a really quick example, I had a couple of busted, I got a whole lot of parsley seeds from someone, and the seed packet opened on the floor of my car. And so I sort of swept it out and I just threw them onto my nature strip. And sure enough, I had parsley there. My friends were saying, oh, I ride past on my bike and pick your parsley every time I'm making salad. And it was really good. But I let them go to head. Now, you could say that was multi-pronged. A, I wasn't around, so they were there. And B, once I had seen them like that, I thought, I'm going to let you be. So I let them be. And one day I was turning the compost and I looked and I thought, see how one of those dog poo bags caught on the parsley heads? Because I was a bit away. I was about 25 meters away. And I walked up and it was just alive with cluster bees. I'd never, ever seen cluster bees in my whole life at my garden. And I was like, holy dooly, right? I didn't know what they were initially. So I texted a photo to my friend who's in the native bees, and he's just gone, yeah, cluster bees, astronomia, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, expletive, this is amazing. and then, what was interesting? And I'll just share this because it changed me to another level. I was like, wow. And like, you got the bigger ones on the outside, and then they go off once they're big enough, but then the little ones are staying nice and warm. And then so anyway, the next day I came down and they were gone. And I said, oh, my bees have gone. And then I thought about it and I thought, you numpty, they're not your bees. Don't even think like that. Change that thinking. They're not mine. I just provided something for them and they came and said, thank you. Like that. And so I just released that and I said, yeah, thank you for teaching me that. I don't own you. Doesn't matter who I am, whether I got $1 million or 10 cents. I can't make you come. I can provide something for you. I had all this go on in my mind over about 2 minutes. I walked 10 steps. I got to my bottle brush and there they were. I said, I released it. I said, it set you free, and you were there. And they stayed, and every day, more and more, they just got bigger and bigger. And then one day they were gone, and I thought, wow, now I haven't seen them. That was probably 2 years ago. But, I think that's what we can do if we just allow the architecture of death to prevail and not see it as this cleanliness thing. The garden is not a room. It's not your living room to sanitize and trim up like some George Michael trimmed beard. Let it go wild, and look what might come. That's one of my highlights, one of my life garden highlights, that these little characters came because I let something be dead.
It's brilliant. I mean, I think it's with Mel, you mentioned iNaturalist, Costa, you mentioned like messaging your bee mate. I think maybe to help people have that level of excitement, sometimes they need to know what they're looking at, don't they? And so or just have a place to go, whoa, I saw this thing, I saw this crazy, like 100 bees on one parsley plant. What the hell is this? And is this cool? And iNaturalist, like, to start in the US, it's absolutely global. It's this amazing, repository where everyone who's anyone posts all their wildlife observations of all wildlife all across the world. Australia's like #3 contributor. It's the greatest thing. We use it for the Christmas beetle count. We use it for Bogong Watch. We're using it for everything. Everyone's using it for everything. If you want an answer to what you're looking at, you've got like 1 million bug nerds, literally 1 million bug nerds at your fingertips in your phone. I mean, you know, it's just the greatest. So that's a really, really good tool. If you see a gigantic cluster of bees, you can take a picture and you'll have people telling you what it is and why it's cool and being excited for you. And, you know, and that might shift something quite dramatically in you about how cool your garden is. I mean, if it can get Costa excited about his gardening, then, you know, he's doing it all day, every day, then it must be exciting for him.
Hey, can I share a really quick follow-up to Costa's frog story?
Please do.
Because you're not going to believe this, but I have found not one, but 2 peacock spiders in my kitchen, which probably says more about my house than you need to know. But it's just like I literally looked down while I was having my breakfast and there is a peacock spider on my kitchen bench. So just another reason to think about not sanitizing your home either, because you never know what might show up.
Almost didn't come to the webinar because she was out the back with her blue bandits and she was like, on Instagram, guys, not sure if I'm going to make it. Sorry. It's awesome. And you know, we're up in the Blue Mountains where I am at the moment on Darug and Gundagaran country, and it is so loud. There's cicadas everywhere up here right now, and it is so fun. And the kids at daycare are crying because I'm not allowed to pick up the cicada. Why aren't I allowed? And I'm like, here we go, you know, grab it, grab it. It's all good. It's all good stuff. Yeah, it's so exciting. There's some really rare morphs of the green grocers popping out all over the place, and yeah, it's something that's been happening for millions and millions of years, and we just get to see it just happen right around us. It comes into our kitchens. Too awesome. All right. So how are we traveling, everyone? Is there anything we haven't covered that you guys would like to jump in with before I ask you another question?
I suppose the thing I was just thinking of what you're all saying is that the other thing about all of this is it just ties in to, as you mentioned, Kate, something like iNaturalist that you can get involved with. It ties into last week, which was the Great Aussie Bird Count. I mean, the more insects you have, because you've got more plants providing more flowers and more nectar and pollen, then you're going to bring the birds. And so then the birds are going to do another whole level of control on top of what Lizzy and Mel are talking about. So you're kind of stacking, you're stacking the shelves of the pantry again, you know, like, because we've taken all these things away by removing the trees and removing the grasses and removing the ground covers. And if you think about that the more insects you have, because I was only thinking about it in terms of, you know, I do a lot of driving and you know, I barely never ever use the windscreen wipers because, you know, there's no insects on the road. Whereas I remember when we used to travel, you know, for the May school holidays up to Queensland, like Dad had put special soap in there and he had a little scraper because we'd be driving and the car windscreen would be covered. So if you can think in those terms and think the more insects I bring, then the more birds I bring, then you know, I engage my children and I engage my neighbors with more birds, and then we do the wild pollinator count, and then we get people connected with iNaturalist and get them doing this birding, and if they bird, then they're going to meet fellow birders and start traveling, and you know, like it then becomes a lifestyle of nature everywhere you go. And then you'll look at landscapes and go, oh, well, there's that vegetation type, so that could mean that these birds are here or this is going on. Yeah, you know, and suddenly you just you see different things and your life opens up in new ways because of insects.
It can really enrich just your everyday experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
So you touched on this, Costa, the windscreen effect, and you know, and it has been criticized, this idea of like, oh, maybe it's the cars' designs are more aerodynamic these days and all this kind of stuff. There's been a lot of good work in the UK that shows that it's extremely unlikely to be anything other than insect decline that is causing that, what's called the windscreen effect. And, you know, we know that insects are declining worldwide. We know that. It's really clear. I mean, there's some incredible long-term studies from Europe and the US, Central America. You know, we've had the bogong moths crash in Australia. We know this is happening. And I guess, you know, one of the biggest drivers for why we started Invertebrates Australia was because we, as scientists, we could see it all around us and we're thinking, well, what the hell are we going to do? We've got to fix it. The only way to fix it is to get everyone together to all be on board with this stuff, and you know, connecting to people through their gardens is the way to go. So I wanted to ask you guys what your kind of favorite messaging is when you're talking to people, and you know, you're at the bus stop or you're in the supermarket, or you know, just these places where you just being the random crazy person that's talking about bugs. I mean, you know, Lizzy and I we're those. I'm sure you guys are too. My favorite is the idea of the 5-minute pet, where you just sit with a critter and just hang out with it for a few minutes and just see what it does.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you got to do. Just say, oh, look, that's interesting. What's this ant going to do? Where's it going to go? Okay, I'll go on my day now. That's one of my favorite kind of ideas to put into people's minds, to say, maybe this is, you know, maybe this is all fun and cool, and maybe you should be able to connect with nature just through loving bugs in your everyday life. Do you guys have, like, you know, you don't have to have like a cool tagline, but just, you know, general sentiments that people can take away with them from the webinar, that they can try, or they can think about, or they can bring up at Christmas is coming, bring it up at the Christmas table and have a good old family debate about
Family, yeah.
in the friendliest possible way. Yeah, what do you guys reckon we should be saying to people, and what should the folks from the webinar send out to the world? Mel, you can go if you've got one, or Costa, whoever.
I don't have a cool tagline or anything like that, but obviously I am in some weird, I look like a weirdo in the bush, on my verge. I think all my neighbors are going to start going, oh, it's that time of year where she's just standing there looking at the wall for hours. No, I'm looking at bees. Thank you very much. They're roosting. But I think my message would just be to be more observant, really, and be that weirdo in the bush. Or don't be afraid to ask that weirdo in the bush if they're okay. I even put on the back of my t-shirt, it said, like, I'm a, like, caution, just frequently stopping to look at flora and fauna, just so people knew I was all right. But yeah, I love having those random conversations. They're like, oh, what are you doing? Well, have you ever seen this before? No. And so I think,
People
yeah,
ask me if I'm looking for my
be
keys. That's what
observant.
they always say.
Are you looking for
Hey?
your kid?
People always ask me if I'm looking for my keys. It's like, no, I'm not. I found a bug.
That's great, Mel. I mean, I definitely need a t-shirt that says frequent stopping for flora and fauna. Yeah, man. Oh my God. Yeah.
Takes a lot of questions from the ones that you don't need to answer, but people are like, hey, that's my person. What are you looking at?
Yeah, that's great. I know, Costa, this is kind of your day job, right? Like, how do you wrap it up into like a...
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, from what Mel was saying, and the reality for me is I like to frame it around the good stuff, because people will find out about the other stuff. But if you know, I don't want to bring people to Invertebrates Australia because the bogong moth is in trouble, because that's kind of like more, it's kind of like, I'll come and join some burden. You know, people got enough of that, and they'll get it because they come, because they see Mel sharing pictures of her blue-banded bees and saying, oh, look at me talking about my my cluster bees, and being excited about it. I think that's the beauty of something like No Spray Spring, because we're not saying don't spray, we're saying look at the stuff that, you know. So I think it, for me, the most important thing is the messaging and how we cachet it, because we want to bring people in. We don't want to say, oh, look, have a look at how bad the view is out this window. Like, you know, no one's going to look. They're just going to, and they'll be the back. We'll see the back end of them. So I love that, you know, you can be you, and I don't even frame it as nerd or weird. I just say, look at Mel, she's into it, right? This is the biz, this is the shiz, this is the stuff, you know. And so when we frame it like that, and we say this is a goal, like this is the real deal, this isn't some obscure mad scientist. No, this is someone recognizing that this is life, and this is what you should be feeding your kids, and feeding your community. This whole appreciation of science and nature, and falling any opportunity to fall in love with nature and put it front foot, like that for me is what the story is about. And something as simple as, when people talk to me about, I'm scared about a spider, or I'm this, I go, think about, and then I give them a story. And, we did a story with Lizzy, and she taught me so much, but little morsels that I take out with me and just go, ooh, and spray them around and say, do you realize that spider, it builds that web and then it chews it up at night, goes and lives there, and then it comes and sets it up again. And you realize it set it up across the side passage because it's not dumb. That's where the wind comes. So all the insects just come blowing in at night. How smart is it? So instead of coming out there every morning and going, oh, just actually go, oh, hang on, and start by giving it a name. Say, oh, Harriet, you're doing wonders there. Lovely to see you this morning. I do have to just shift this little extension across there. Can you maybe just set up there during the day? And then at night, come back, that's fine. And then in the morning, Harriet, lovely to see you. Oh, you've got a good catch there. I'll leave it with you. And so, we can really reframe these things and get even the hardest, die-hard, spray the bejeez out of everything person. If we can humanize it and give it a personality, people listen a bit differently that way.
Fantastic. I mean, that's exactly what we want to do. At Invertebrates Australia, we want to tell Australians all about the stories of Australian invertebrates. We want everybody to be as excited about invertebrates as we are. And the reason we're excited about them, I think, is because we know their stories. We know why they're cool. We know how weird they really are and how amazing they are, how beautiful they are, what they do, and why they matter so much to not just humans, but, the whole biosphere, and making sure nature works the way it's supposed to in this country. So, yeah, I'm just going to wrap up by saying thanks heaps to Mel and Costa for joining us. And of course, Lizzy's part of Invertebrates Australia, but thanks for coming along too, Lizzy. Thanks for being
Love it. Thanks, Kate.
The No Spray Spring champion, and Lizzy's our project manager for No Spray Spring and Invertebrates Australia. You can support Invertebrates Australia in all kinds of ways. Like Lizzy mentioned, stickers and garden signs, buy your garden sign and proudly display your bug-friendly garden. Just keep it away from your 3-year-olds, because I never know where mine is. I've got to nail it down to something. You can buy that. You can become a supporter of Invertebrates Australia. You can become a member. You can join up our newsletter. You can donate to us. So little of the philanthropic funding in Australia goes to the environmental sector. So, we're a great place to send your cash, and we'll be sending the message out to everybody about how great Australian invertebrates are.
Have you noticed? Can I just say? And I haven't been able to. I've had a bit of a crack at a couple of answers, but wow, thanks everyone for being here. Like, a massive audience, and there's a great chat going on there. Like,
how many good questions?
The questions are fantastic. We could be going for 3 hours, and it'll be 10 o'clock, and I won't even take a breath. I'm trying to find a few more answers here to post a few links to things.
I think Kate and I can probably summarize some of them in the email that'll go out to everyone afterwards as well. We can jump on and send some links through.
Yeah, that's right. So we're gonna keep a record of all the questions. We're gonna try to get answers out to everybody that kind of cover all of the main themes of the questions. And you'll get an email saying, thanks for coming to the webinar. Here's the recording, and here's some more info. The other thing to say is get out there and record your bugs. So, we've got the Christmas beetles are coming out right now. The first Christmas beetles of the season have been seen. We want to record them. They live all across the country. They've been found in every state and territory in Australia. So get out and find Christmas beetles. There's 35 species. Get out and record your bogong moth observations. And don't forget to sign the No Spray Spring pledge on our website. So we'll be making sure that we send all the information on how to get involved in all that stuff out to you. And just an absolutely huge thank you to everyone for coming and spending your evening with us. Go and have your dinner. Think about where your food came from. Sincere thanks for spending the time with us, and spread the good word, because bugs are the new cool thing around town.
Here,
Thanks,
here.
everybody.
Thanks,
Okay,
Kate.
good to see you, Costa. Good to meet
Thanks,
you, Mel.
Lizzy.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mel.
Kate. Good on you, Mel.
Great work, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. Awesome.